When your photograph becomes illegal contraband in an entire empire, you've achieved a level of notoriety that transcends ordinary scandal and enters the realm of international incident. Indeed, Clara Ward collected titles like other women collected jewellery: Princess of Belgium, Notorious Performer, Banned Image, Serial Bride, each identity more shocking than the last. Her life read like a Gothic novel written by someone with unlimited budgets and questionable judgment. Mad family members, tragic early deaths, finishing school expulsions, and enough romantic drama to fuel a dozen opera plots. The Detroit fortune, that should have secured her place among America's aristocratic elite, instead funded a 20-year campaign of systematic rebellion against every social convention her era considered sacred. By the time European governments were hunting down her photographs and newspapers were tracking her movements like military intelligence, Clara had proven that American money plus aristocratic boredom could create chaos on an international scale. Thus, in today's episode of Old Money Allure, we chronicle the woman who turned scandal into performance art. Clara Ward entered the world on June 17, 1873, in Detroit, Michigan, inheriting not just her father's fortune, but a family legacy so twisted with madness and scandal, it might have served as a Gothic novelist's inspiration. Her father, Captain Eber Brock Ward, had earned the distinction of becoming Michigan's first millionaire through Great Lakes, shipping, lumber, iron, steel, railroads, and silver mining, an industrial colossus worth $6 million when he suffered a fatal stroke in 1875. Clara was just 18 months old when her father died, too young to remember the man whose first wife he'd allegedly had committed to an insane asylum after she filed for divorce over his serial infidelities. The Ward family tree sprouted branches heavy with tragedy. Half-brother Henry declared insane at 15 and institutionalized. Elizabeth deemed mentally incompetent. Charles labelled deranged and eccentric, while Frederick took his own life rather than continue the family tradition of madness. Even Clara's full brother Eber Jr. would later scandalise society by developing an inappropriate infatuation with his stepdaughter before running off with his wife's maid. Clara's mother, Catherine Lyon, 30 years younger than her late husband and niece to Senator Benjamin Wade, moved the family to New York and Toronto, marrying Canadian lawyer Alexander Cameron, while trying desperately to control her increasingly uncontrollable daughter. At 15, Clara began her European education at a series of prestigious finishing schools, each ending the same way, with expulsion for behaviour that shocked even the worldly headmistresses of London and Paris. She once vanished from school for nearly 3 weeks, only to be discovered hiding in the attic room of a penniless student, a scandal that required significant financial smoothing over. At an Italian convent, she managed to scandalise nuns who'd thought they'd seen everything, earning her expulsion after just 2 weeks of behaviour so outrageous, the sisters refused to specify the offences. One school reported she'd escaped by hiding atop her mother's carriage, clinging to the luggage while the vehicle departed, then dropping off at the first turn to freedom. Her diary from this period revealed a soul destined for scandal. Ordinary marriage and smug respectability appall me. I'd rather marry a murderer. Throughout these educational disasters, Clara burned through an annual allowance of $40,000, over $1 million in today's money, constantly demanding more to fund her extravagant tastes. She stood 5 feet 8 inches tall, towering over most women of her era, with beauty that newspapers would later describe as capable of stopping traffic in any European capital. Her mother, increasingly desperate to contain this beautiful hurricane of a daughter, concluded that only marriage could potentially channel Clara's wild energies into acceptable aristocratic channels. When Prince Joseph de Caraman-Chimay of Belgium arrived in 1889, seeking an American heiress to restore his crumbling castle and settle his debts, Catherine saw salvation. The prince, 31 years old and possessing impeccable aristocratic credentials as a member of the Belgian Chamber of Deputies and cousin to King Leopold II, needed money as desperately as Catherine needed respectability for Clara. Clara, just 16 and already bored with her endless expulsions and maternal battle, saw in the prince's proposal not love but escape, a ticket to European courts where her beauty and wealth might find grander stages. Their engagement represented everything wrong with Gilded Age, transatlantic marriages. Youth traded for a title, American millions exchanged for European prestige, and two people who barely knew each other bound together by financial necessity. But even as wedding preparations began, for what would be one of the era's most lavish ceremonies, Clara was already planning her own interpretations of aristocratic duty. The wedding of Clara Ward to Prince Joseph de Caraman-Chimay on May 20, 1890 in Paris represented the apotheosis of Gilded Age excess, with the bride's gown alone costing $10,000 and ornamented with seed pearls as thick as dew on grass. Clara's dowry of 3.5 million francs, approximately 2.5 million in today's dollars, immediately cleared Prince Joseph's 500,000 franc debt and funded $300,000 in desperately needed repairs to the crumbling Château de Chimay. The transaction was so transparently commercial that wedding guests whispered about which party had gotten the better bargain, the aging prince with his young bride's fortune, or the American heiress with her new Belgian title. Clara entered aristocratic life with the same rebellious spirit that had terrorized finishing schools, immediately shocking Belgian society with behavior that violated every principle of noble discretion. She developed a habit of throwing gold coins from the castle battlements to watch villagers scramble and fight below, a display of wealth and cruelty that horrified her husband's aristocratic circle. At court functions, she wore gowns cut so daringly low that elder statesmen forgot their conversations mid-sentence, while she chain-smoked Turkish cigarettes and rode her bicycle through Brussels wearing bloomers. Chef Auguste Escoffier, charmed by her beauty and American frankness, named 2 dishes in her honour, à la Chimay and Poulard Chimay, ensuring her culinary immortality even as her reputation crumbled. The marriage produced 2 children, Marie Elizabeth in 1891 and Marie Joseph in 1895, but motherhood failed to domesticate Clara's increasingly scandalous behaviour. Rumours began circulating about her relationship with King Leopold II, her husband's cousin, who allegedly became so obsessed with the young princess that Queen Marie Henriette demanded their removal from court. Whether Leopold's interest was real or exaggerated by gossips, the whispers grew louder when 21-year-old Prince Baudouin died suddenly of influenza in 1891, with malicious tongues claiming Clara's alleged affair with him had provoked murder. Prince Joseph, 15 years older than his wife and interested primarily in hunting and fencing, proved incapable of either controlling or engaging Clara's restless spirit. She later described their marriage as a study in contrasts. "I possessed an unwielding will, despite being physically lazy, while my husband was emotionally indolent, despite being physically fit." The prince's idea of conversation consisted of recounting his hunting expeditions in exhaustive detail, while Clara's American fortune paid for everything from castle repairs to his sporting equipment. By 1896, after 6 years of marriage, Clara had grown so bored with aristocratic life that she spent most of her time in Paris, ostensibly shopping, but actually seeking any diversion from her tedious existence. She purchased a custom lavender automobile fitted with a full-length vanity mirror, driving it at reckless speeds through the Bois de Boulogne, while horrified society matrons clutched their pearls. Her breakfast preferences, chocolate eclairs paired with anchovy toast, earned mockery from Le Figaro as culinary anarchy, but Clara delighted in anything that shocked conventional sensibilities. When questioned about her increasingly public defiance of aristocratic norms, she would smile sweetly and declare that a princess is only a woman with a dress budget. But even Clara's appetite for scandal couldn't have prepared her for the November evening in 1896, when she and Prince Joseph dined at a fashionable Parisian restaurant. That night, a Hungarian Roma violinist named Rigo Gypsy would play a melody that would shatter her marriage, destroy her reputation, and transform her from rebellious princess to international scandal. Rigo Gypsy, born János Rigo on August 23, 1858, possessed neither conventional beauty nor aristocratic bearing. His receding hairline, handlebar moustache, and short stature hardly suggested a romantic hero. But when the 38-year-old violinist played at Maxim's that November evening in 1896. His bow drew across the strings with such passionate intensity that Clara Ward forgot her husband sitting across the table. Witnesses swore she slipped Gypsy a diamond ring between courses, though others claimed she simply turned from Prince Joseph to smile at the musician with unmistakable invitation. The violinist, whose stage name meant Blackbird Johnny, had shown extraordinary talent from age 5, becoming a renowned primas performing in Europe's major capitals, his Romani musical style creating sensation wherever he played. Within 10 days of that first meeting, Clara made a decision that would echo across continents. She abandoned her husband, her children, her title, and her position to elope with the Hungarian musician. Prince Joseph's cable to Clara's mother, Gone with a Gypsy, became instant headline fodder, with newspapers tracking the lovers' rail journey from Paris to Budapest, as if reporting wartime troop movements. The Luddington Record of December 24, 1896, carried woodcut illustrations under the dramatic headline, while European papers breathlessly speculated about where the scandalous couple would surface next. In Budapest, a clever pâtissier commemorated the affair by creating the Rigaud Gypsy cake, rum-kissed chocolate mousse sandwiched between cocoa geoise layers and lacquered in ganache, ensuring the scandal would be literally consumed for generations. Clara's divorce proceedings began immediately, with Prince Joseph winning custody of their children, while she agreed to pay 12,000 francs annually in support, though she would seldom visit them again. When confronted about abandoning her maternal duties, Clara's response was characteristically defiant. "I am done with it all. I wanted to be free." The newlyweds, married probably in Hungary, attempted to settle in Paris, where Clara's fortune began supporting their extravagant lifestyle, while her family cut off further financial support in punishment for the scandal. Needing income and craving attention, Clara began performing at the Folies Bergère and Moulin Rouge under the billing La presenting 3 tableaux vivants poses nightly: Truth, Venus and Cleopatra. Her poses plastique involved appearing in skin-tight, flesh-coloured body stockings that made her appear virtually naked, while Rigaud accompanied on violin from the wings. One contemporary observer breathlessly described, "Something in white flashed between us and the semi-darkness." Her beauty was heightened by a loose, clinging dress, which simply blazed with costly jewels. Then she began her dance to weird, barbaric music, softly, lightly, with a voluptuous, sensuous charm. But Clara's performances attracted more than paying audiences. They drew the wrath of Belgian aristocrats determined to punish her for blackening the Chimay name. Paris police shut down one engagement after receiving tips that Prince Joseph's friends intended to hurl live rabbits, rotten eggs, and other equally objectionable missiles at her mid-performance. Her photographs, sold as postcards throughout Europe, became so popular that she emerged as one of the world's first celebrity pin-up girls, her image adorning shop windows from London to Vienna. But Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany found Clara's beauty so disturbing and her lifestyle so morally corrosive that he officially banned the publication, display and sale of her photographs throughout the German Empire. This extraordinary decree carried legal weight. People actually went to prison for violating the Kaiser's ban on Clara Ward imagery, making her perhaps the only woman whose beauty was literally illegal in an entire nation. Prince Joseph joined the campaign, ordering authorities to raid photoshops and confiscate any evidence of his ex-wife's suggestive performances, particularly those featuring her notorious pink tights. Clara's response to the Kaiser's ban was characteristically defiant. She licensed even more provocative photographs for mass production in Paris, turning her scandalous image into a lucrative business beyond German borders. Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec immortalised the scandal in his 1897 lithograph Transcends, depicting Clara coyly shielding Rigaud behind her opera cloak, the artwork now residing in the Cleveland Museum of Art. But the fairy tale romance that had shocked 2 continents began crumbling under the weight of mutual infidelity, violent quarrels, and the reality of life outside aristocratic protection. Hotel staff in Vienna reported nightly screams of rage and heavy objects thrown as the couple fought over Clara's private performances for wealthy male clientele. one-on-one encounters that sent Rigaud into jealous rages. The concierge once summoned gendarmes after a particularly vicious fight, from which Clara emerged laughing with a cracked emerald bracelet, treating their domestic violence as another form of performance. Despite Clara spending approximately 20 million in today's currency on satisfying her husband's every whim, their marriage became increasingly unstable, with Clara's mother placing her fortune under an uncle's trusteeship. Clara still received a yearly allowance of around 2 million in modern money, though much went directly to Prince Joseph for child support, leaving her constantly seeking new sources of income. By 1904, after 8 tumultuous years, Clara and Rigaud divorced, with both parties accusing the other of serial infidelity and financial irresponsibility. Before newspapers finished reporting their separation, Clara had already found her next conquest. Giuseppe, variously described as a humble baggage assistant or waiter in a train dining car. The pattern continued with mechanical precision. Clara married Ricciardi in 1904, their union lasting 6 years before dramatically ending when he allegedly caught her with their household butler. Her reaction was predictably unrepentant. "I cannot be alone. I am unhappy like that. I shall marry once again." True to her word, Clara's fourth and final marriage was to Signor Salota, possibly a train station manager, though she kept this union so secret that her family learned of it only through a telegram. Throughout these serial marriages, Clara maintained her extravagant lifestyle and provocative public persona, riding through European capitals in her lavender automobile with its full-length mirror. Marcel Proust, who corresponded with her, based a character in Perdu on Clara, portraying her as a disgraced cousin of the Baron de Charlus. The character of Simone Pistache in the 1960 film Can drew inspiration from Clara's Scandalous performances, with Shirley MacLaine recreating those infamous skin-tight costumes. Clara's health began failing in her early 40s, her body worn down by decades of excess, scandal, and the constant performance of being the world's most notorious American princess. She died of pneumonia on December 9th, 1916, at age 43 in Padua, Italy, leaving approximately $1 million split between her estranged children and, through an unchanged will, her ex-husband Ricciardi. A Detroit newspaper's obituary captured her essence perfectly. She died a woman without illusions. She had gone the pace. She lived intensely, a slave of her desires. She died an outcast, an old woman of 43 years, just when she should have been in her prime. The telegraph from Signor Casalota informing her family of her death was the first they'd heard of either her final marriage or her declining health, Clara having maintained her appetite for secrets until the end. Though Gypsy outlived his notorious princess by 11 years, dying in poverty on February 3, 1927, at Harlem Hospital in New York, where he'd worked as a musician in a Hungarian restaurant called Little Hungary. The American princess, whose photograph was too dangerous for German eyes, had burned through 4 husbands, several fortunes, and every social convention of her era, leaving behind a legacy of scandal that still flavours a chocolate cake in Budapest. And now we'd like to see you in the comments. Which part of Clara's rebellious life intrigued you most? We look forward to hearing from you, so don't be shy and let us know your thoughts below. See you there, and thanks for joining us for another episode of Old Money Allure.